The story begins in a magnificent kingdom, hidden between towering mountains, a land ruled by a brave and just eagle king who sees his kingdom as a sacred trust. Under his peaceful rule, the people live happily and without fear, while his young son dreams of one day becoming a ruler just like his beloved father. But beneath the calm surface of the palace, a dangerous enemy is secretly waiting. Hyena, a ruthless and ambitious figure, has gathered allies and begun planning a rebellion. As the young prince innocently looks toward his father's throne with admiration, Hyena makes his own dark promise. Tonight, the kingdom will belong to him. One night, Hyena finally puts his rebellion into action, launching a brutal attack with his army. Within moments, the peaceful palace is transformed into a battlefield as soldiers clash through its halls, and the sound of war fills the kingdom. The Eagle King quickly realizes that this is no ordinary attack. It is a carefully planned coup, and his son is now in grave danger. Knowing he may not survive, the king urgently tells the frightened prince to listen carefully and remain strong. He reveals that an old friend, the Rabbit King, lives deep inside a distant forest and may be able to protect him. The prince must escape immediately because saving his life is now the king's greatest duty. The Eagle King opens an ancient secret passage hidden inside the palace and leads his son toward the only possible escape. With tears and fear in his heart, the young prince promises his father that one day he will return and reclaim their kingdom. The king gives him his final blessing and orders him to run, knowing this may be their last meeting. The prince disappears into the dark tunnel just as Hyena reaches the king. Face to face with his enemy, the Eagle King refuses to surrender, declaring that Hyena can never truly own the kingdom while he lives. But Hyena is determined to take everything. Outside the palace, the prince continues running into the darkness, carrying only his father's final words and a promise that will shape the rest of his life. Alone and terrified, the young prince enters an unfamiliar forest, determined to find the Rabbit King, who was once his father's trusted friend. He walks for hours without knowing exactly where the road will lead, until morning finally reveals signs of a settlement in the distance. Hope returns to his exhausted heart as he realizes that someone may live there. Eventually, he reaches a peaceful kingdom where rabbits live under the rule of their own king. Unsure whether this is the palace he has been searching for, the prince approaches cautiously, only to be stopped by armed guards. When they demand to know who he is, he reveals that he is the son of the Eagle King and has been sent there by his father. The moment the guards hear the name of the fallen king, they realize this mysterious young stranger may be far more important than he appears. The guards immediately inform the Rabbit King that a young eagle claiming to be the son of the Eagle King has arrived. When the Rabbit King meets him and hears the truth, he recognizes the connection to his old friend and welcomes the boy without hesitation. He tells the orphan prince that he is no longer alone and that this kingdom can now be his home as well. For the first time since escaping the palace, the young prince finds safety and a family willing to protect him. But his father's final words remain alive in his heart. Night after night, he remembers the promise he made before entering the secret passage. Under the Rabbit King's guidance, his new life begins. Not with revenge, but with discipline, patience, courage, and the lessons required to become a true ruler. Years pass, and the helpless child slowly transforms into a powerful and disciplined warrior. The Rabbit King teaches him that strength alone cannot make a good king. A true ruler must understand justice, patience, responsibility, and the needs of his people. Meanwhile, far away, Hyena continues strengthening his cruel rule, believing the kingdom will remain his forever. But the day the prince has been waiting for finally arrives. He tells the Rabbit King that it is time to return and reclaim his homeland. The older king warns him that revenge is never an easy path, and that war always demands sacrifice. Yet the prince makes his purpose clear. He is not returning simply for a throne. He is returning to seek justice for his father. Seeing the determination in his eyes, the Rabbit King finally gives him permission to leave, and offers the support of his army. A powerful army gathers behind the young prince, ready to end Hyena's tyranny and restore freedom to the kingdom. After days of travel, the army reaches the border of the land the prince once called home. For the first time in years, he sees his ancestral kingdom again and remembers the father who gave everything to save him. But inside the palace, Hyena receives terrifying news. A large army is approaching, led by the son of the Eagle King. Hyena can hardly believe it. The child he once believed was gone has returned as a grown warrior. Rage replaces his disbelief, and he orders his entire army to prepare for battle. Soon, the two forces stand facing each other on the battlefield, separated by years of hatred, loss, and injustice. The prince finally stands before his father's killer and declares that he has returned to reclaim his kingdom. The battle begins with overwhelming force as the armies crash into one another. Soldiers fight across the battlefield while cries and the sounds of combat fill the air. The young prince refuses to remain behind his warriors. He fights at the very front, inspiring his army with every move. The Rabbit King's forces suddenly launch a powerful attack from the side, throwing Hyena's troops into confusion. But Hyena refuses to surrender and enters the battlefield himself, reorganizing his soldiers and pushing back against the assault. For a moment, victory remains uncertain. Then the prince's army begins gaining the advantage, forcing Hyena's forces toward the city walls. The battle grows more intense as the defenders make one final desperate stand. At last, the kingdom's gates are broken, and the army fighting for freedom storms into the city. After years of oppression, the people finally see the son of their rightful king returning to them. The sight of the prince entering the city fills the people with a hope they have not felt for years. But Hyena is not ready to surrender the throne, and the conflict quickly becomes a final personal confrontation. The prince tells him that he has come to settle the account for his father, while Hyena challenges him to prove that he is truly worthy of the kingdom. Their final duel begins as the two enemies face one another with everything at stake. Hyena attacks with all his strength, expecting the prince to fall just as his father once did. But the young warrior has changed. He is no longer the frightened child who fled through the secret passage years ago. He has been trained, tested, and hardened by time. Every attack reminds him of his father's sacrifice, and every moment brings him closer to the justice he promised to deliver. Hyena continues fighting, mocking the prince by reminding him that no victory can bring his father back. But the prince refuses to let grief turn him into another tyrant. In the middle of the final struggle, he remembers his father's last advice, to never lose courage. With renewed strength, he withstands Hyena's attacks and finally overpowers him. The ruthless usurper falls, defeated by the very child whose survival he once believed impossible. Yet when the moment comes to decide Hyena's fate, the prince chooses a different path. He refuses to become the same kind of man who murdered his father. His victory is not measured by revenge, but by restoring justice. As the people celebrate their rightful ruler, the throne once again returns to the Eagle King's family, ending years of cruel rule. The kingdom finally breathes freely after years of oppression. The people celebrate their new ruler, but despite his victory, the prince feels the absence of his father more deeply than ever. He looks toward the throne and remembers the man who sacrificed himself so his son could survive. The prince knows that his greatest responsibility has only just begun. He promises that the kingdom will never again be ruled through fear and cruelty, but through justice and fairness. The oath he made as a child has finally been fulfilled. His father's kingdom has been restored, Hyena's tyranny has ended, and the people have their freedom again. Yet the prince understands that true victory is not simply winning a war. It is becoming the kind of just ruler his father always wanted him to be.